Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively talking local stuff here. Nothing more local than our friends at Taharka. The ice cream's missing in here because, well, this one's in my wife's belly. I'll blame her on the key lime pie. That is her favorite flavor. Somewhere there's a couple of honey grams around here that I crushed off. Taharka and Taharka Brothers, they're delivering it. We had an incredible conversation this week, and we're going to continue to have conversations with the folks who make the ice cream and the people who deliver the ice cream, including my pal Steve. So give Taharka some love. They're giving us some love as we merge the WNST and Baltimore Positive brands into one place. You'll see the State Fair logo. You'll see the El Guapo logo. You can still ship those these crab cakes from anywhere in the world to you and your belly and somebody that you really love. And, of course, Moeller and Gary Realty as well. I'm really interested in this segment because I have been invited to her home, office, the street, the parties. I've known her husband for years, and I've never met her, and yet somehow she showed up on my calendar this week. And this is where executive producer Don Moeller comes in, who is, I always say, my wife and I say Facebook, they read your mind. Like you'll talk about something, the next day it'll be, I swear you're reading my mind in booking this guest. So I'm so excited for this segment.
Well, we're talking about making Baltimore City better. We've got the outstanding candidate for city council in the 14th district, Odette Ramos. We are delighted to have you and welcome to Baltimore Positive.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. It's really great talking with you.
All right, listen, I'll tell you where I met your husband, and then you can tell me.
Get a word.
No. Because I've never met
you.
you, and this is embarrassing that we're in the middle of a plague, right? And I've been invited. Listen, your husband brings my wife's favorite thing in the world. Are the Caribbean bells and the steel drums, right?
Yeah.
And your husband's been inviting for years. And I always say to my wife, my DJ buddy that lives up by, Old Memorial Stadium up by Hopkins, he's inviting us, and they got a food truck and they got food and they're like, he married a Latin woman. They're going to have great food. I got to go up there, So that's your welcome to Baltimore Positive. Because I'm sorry I haven't met you, and I'm sorry we're in a plague. And tell him that I want one of those T-shirts, the home T-shirts. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's he organizes the music series at the Peabody Heights Brewery, so people can come and listen to great music and be outside and drink beer.
Moeller is shocked that I've turned down beer. He heard the beer part, and he's like, "And you didn't go?" What?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. Well, jumping from beer to politics, which is an easy leap. Odette, you are not new to this. You've been involved. You've been involved in the city. You've been involved in activism. You've worked for a legend. Safe to say, the 14th district, and you worked for Mary Pat Clark. Why do you want – these are tough times out there. We've got a pandemic. We got a fiscal crisis. We've got racial strife. We've got a president trying to steal an election. Who the heck wants to be an elected official at this time?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks again for having me. It's great to meet you virtually, and hopefully we get to meet in person. And of course, Mr. Moeller, I know of your work in Baltimore County, so thanks to you both for your
called him Mr. Moeller since '82.
Don will be just fine, guys.
Okay, no problem. Well, yes. So I've had the good fortune to work for Senator Mikulski actually as well, and also volunteer and work with Councilwoman Clark. And she is a legend. She really set the bar very, very high for public service, right? So she, answers every call. She comes when you need her. She's very responsive. She's no scandals, by the way. So it's an honor really to be able to work with her, to learn from her, which I'm doing very much now, learning a lot from her, and then also building on her legacy. I think it's important that we, honor her legacy as somebody who has done a lot of work in Baltimore City, not just on the constituent stuff, because we know she's really good at that, but she's put in some challenging legislation. You know, she put in the Fight for 15 legislation here in the city, and then it was vetoed by Catherine Pugh, and then again passed at the state level, which was a good thing. She's got some important legislation in now to try to get rid of this Bresco. So she's really made a mark on our city, and I'm just honored to know her, and I'm honored to have her support, and I'm honored to be learning from her. And like I said, building on her legacy. My background is in community development and housing, affordable housing, homeownership preservation. So there's a lot in that regard relative to vacant properties and things like that that I want to start working on, which is a big issue in our city. So I'm ready to get started.
Well, why run then?
November, of course.
What made you run? At what point did you go from being the assistant to being, I want to do this?
Yeah, so I wasn't working with her or for her, for Mary Pat. So my job I've done a lot of advocacy work in my last 30 years here in Baltimore relative to, I mean, I was one of the founders of the Village Learning Place and very involved in Charles Village, and now became the executive director of the Community Development Network of Maryland. This was 8 years ago, and I just left there. So I've done a lot of work around affordable housing. We were starting the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, so now we have $20 million more a year for affordable housing in the city. And so you'd think, well, I've done all this stuff, I can keep going. And but I did have this question, you know, whether I could make more of a difference as a public official than an advocate. And you need both for public policy to work. But we also need good people in government that are going to be partners and actually think innovatively and think differently to get the job done in the city. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So when Councilwoman Clark decided to retire, I thought, well, here's an opportunity to really put that theory to test, whether I could actually make a difference, more of a difference in our city on issues that I don't always get a chance to work on in community development. I'm very, interested in substance abuse, and this is a big issue in our city that we're not tackling very well and don't have a system for, and it's not anywhere near in my background. So wondering, who we can bring together, and I know we have a lot of people we can bring together to do that, and as a council person, I can really bring the right people together to make that work. So I'm interested in it. I think that the other thing is as the executive director of the Community Development Network, we put in a lot of legislation at the state level to be able to have more tools to address vacant properties all over the state. And it's just been recently that the city started to implement that. But at the time, I was like, well, we got to implement this here in the city. We're going to do this. And so that was my other motivation. But I will say that public service is in my blood. My parents are teachers. My dad was in the Air Force. My sister's a nurse. My brother's a teacher. Everything, very much public service and serving people. And my great-grandmother ran for governor of Puerto Rico. So politics is in our blood as well. And this was the right opportunity.
I'm just glad Puerto Rico wasn't sold off for Greenland. I just
Well, I tell you, it's going to be interesting. On Puerto Rico's ballot this year is a question about whether or not they want to finally become a state, and it's very controversial there. And so I won't go into all those details, but
well, I can only imagine your anger when the president showed up throwing out toilet paper to your people.
It was awful. It was really bad. And I have an aunt my godmother actually, who didn't have power for a whole year.
Wow.
After the hurricane, and it's devastating, and there's so many people that are still reeling from that tragedy. So yeah, I mean, this guy obviously doesn't care about Puerto Rico. He doesn't care about the rest of us either, because there's 200,000 people that just died of COVID, and that's on him. That is on him.
According to him, it affects almost nobody. But rather than use up the oxygen to talk about the inhabitant of the White House, I can't let you throw that Puerto Rico tidbit out there and without at least some explanation, because I think our listeners would care about that. When you say there's a ballot initiative that's going to be on the ballot in November in Puerto Rico, where they would say, we want to become a state, that would be the first step. And that I think the average American would say, well, that's going to get 95% of the vote. You're saying it's not quite that clear cut. Someone in Puerto Rico who does not want to become a state, what would be their argument? I'm not asking you to support their argument. I'm asking you what it would be.
Yeah, sure. So There are a lot of people who are interested in statehood because we've been part of the U.S. for a while. There are a growing number of people interested in independence, just basically how the U.S. treated the island after the hurricane. You know, why do we need to be part of that? Especially since, you know, Puerto Rico could not ask for help from other countries after that because we were a territory of the U.S. I mean, it's a very complicated reason why, but that happened. And then others just kind of want to keep it as it is. And so it is controversial. The other thing is that Puerto Rico enjoys having its own Olympic team, its own Miss Universe, its own, you know, competition in the world. And so again, we have this controversy on the island of how this is going to work out. So,
but by the way,
see.
I saw a stat. Puerto Rico would be the 31st largest state population-wise, Don. I don't know if you knew that or not. 3.2 million citizens above, ready? Iowa, Nevada, Arkansas, Mississippi, Kansas, New Mexico, Nebraska, West Virginia, Idaho, Hawaii, New Hampshire, which much to my wife's chagrin, Maine, Montana, down the line, right? Like Puerto Rico is bigger than all of those places, literally.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so, and I think that's going to be controversial that if the island wants to become a state, I don't think that the Republicans want them because they're going to be Democratic representatives. So that's the other big reason why to address this guy in the White House and also flip the Senate. So that, I mean, there's lots of reason to flip the Senate. Okay. But this is one of them.
I only need four. Just give me four reasons. That's all we need. Four reasons.
That's exactly
Odette,
right.
You talk about the Community Development Network. You have been intensely involved in an issue that Nestor and I have been talking about on this show now for almost 2 years, and that is housing, particularly affordable housing. And for some reason, this is a nationwide crisis. It's not getting better, and it's hardly ever talked about. Like, for example, I doubt we'll have one question in 3 presidential debates or a vice presidential debate about affordable housing. And yet you talk about something that really affects people at their core. It's that. Educate us a little bit on the crisis and some things that you think we can do as a city to make it better.
Yeah, so this is, it is a really, really big deal, especially now with the eviction crisis that we're about to have and many people are experiencing. So when we talk about affordable housing, what we're talking about is that people can pay we only want people to pay a third of their income on housing costs, okay? That includes rent and mortgage, BGE, all of that, okay? So it's affordable if someone can pay, 30% or below of their income on housing. In Baltimore, we actually have about 50% of our people are paying over 30% of their income on housing costs, okay? And that's mostly rent. And so what does that mean? That means that they can't pay for food. That means that they have to make decisions on whether to pay for prescriptions or not. That means that we have to make those really tough financial decisions in order to just keep a roof over our head.
And it might also mean that somebody in their family has to resort to stealing or something.
It could be.
Something afoul of the law to keep food on their table.
That's exactly
I don't think we talk enough
so,
about that in the city. The crime that isn't just mean people being mean, they need to eat.
That's right. That's right. And so if they're having to pay rent because they need to stay in their home and they have to make other decisions, they could go elsewhere. I mean, we actually have a really robust entrepreneurial spirit, I think, in Baltimore because people are making decisions not to go in the criminal direction, but to try other things. And we need to make sure that they're also supported as well.
I guess what my point is, if people are not feeling like they're going to be thrown out of their homes and they feel like they're stable, they're a lot less likely to crime would go down. I'm convinced of that.
I think that it's really multifaceted. That is one aspect of it. I'm pretty sure that's one aspect of it. And so so I just wanted to make sure that we define affordable housing that way. Some people just simply define it as Section 8, and that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the full gamut of available housing for people with, any income, but as long as they're only paying 30% of their income on housing, okay? And so what does that mean? That means we have to have a variety of options for people, whether it's homeownership, whether it's rental. We have a, on any given night in Baltimore City, we have 3,000 people homeless, okay? And that's going to get worse in the eviction crisis. And so how do we work with, and then there's also the chronically homeless that also have mental health and substance abuse. So housing is the first thing that people are going to need in order to be safe and to be stable enough to bring themselves back. So, but we don't have enough of that, what's called permanent supportive housing, which provides the housing, but also all the social services around it. Okay, and healthcare for the homeless and Episcopal housing and several others are moving in that direction. We just need more resources there, more state tax credits there and federal tax credits in order to make that work. But we need a variety. And so that's one of the reasons why many of us started the Affordable Housing Trust Fund with the ballot initiative and signatures and all of that in 2016, and then got the funding source because we need more of that variety, whether it's, units, whether it's, assistance for homeownership, a local voucher program, because the federal voucher program is so oversubscribed. And now it's helping us with this rental assistance to make sure that people are staying in our homes. Housing is, I think, the root of everything, because now also we have virtual school. And so there are many times where parents are taking their kids to work because they have to work to be able to, and then have school there. But there's lots of people that are staying home, and we absolutely, it's just criminal if they end up getting evicted. Where's the kid going to be able to go to school while we're at virtual school? So it's all of this is wrapped up, and housing is very important. People need to have stable housing in order to be able to take care of everything else. Get your prescriptions, get your medicine, get your food, all of that. So it is a really, really important issue, and something that we also have this inclusionary housing law in Baltimore City that doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Tell folks what that is, Odette.
Sure. Yeah. So inclusionary housing means that, in the basic sense, that if there's a new development or any development that, a certain designated number of units have to be what's called affordable for people under a certain amount of income. Okay. So in most places, like in Montgomery County, it's 20%. And if the developer feels like they can't do that for any reason, they have to contribute money to a pot that can then be used for affordable housing. Okay. In Baltimore City, what ended up happening with the inclusionary housing law was you have to have 20% of a new development has to have affordable housing for certain types of incomes. And then if the developer can't do it for any reason, whether it's unaffordable because they can't get the rents or whatever, that they can go and contribute into the pot, or they can get a waiver. So what happens? They get the waiver, right? So we have only had about 25, 30 units in the last 10 years that have been made inclusionary through the inclusionary housing law. So this is something major that is going to change in my package of housing bills that I'll be putting in, because if I'm successful in November, because it is truly, we have to
and your remedy,
how we're doing that.
I apologize for talking over you and interrupting. Your remedy, just so our folks can understand, your remedy would be to take away the waiver option?
Yes, to make it not so much of a big loophole, and make it either a little loophole or eliminate it.
Odette Ramos is our guest. She is a 14th district running for Baltimore City Council on the shoulders of Mary Pat Clark, and we talked a lot about that and talked about Puerto Rico. And the thing living in the city for me, when you talk about schools, is online and education and how the world has changed dramatically. And as you know, Don was an educator, and you come from a family of educators. I don't have school-age children right now. My son just turned 36 the other day, and I thought to myself, and I think for every person I know, like Don's kids who have kids and everybody out there, but in the city, the Wi-Fi issues, the tablets and the phones and the things that are necessary, the technology necessary to educate children. We started on this with the college folks and Dr. Sonia Santelises back in the spring. Where are we now that school has started, specifically in your district in the city, where I'm sure it's a wide mix of different kinds of people in schooling and parents and affordable housing, everything that would go into this, but affording the ability to have Wi-Fi so I can see the teacher the way you're looking at me right now?
This is a challenge. This is a challenge. My district is pretty diverse. I have Hamden all the way to Clifton Park, pretty much. And so it's very diverse and lots of different issues in each part of the district. But specifically to that issue, there's two main things. One is access to the technology. So there's a few schools in my district that I still have families on waiting list for their devices. Okay, and so
they're not
using,
in school right now.
And they're not in school. Now the schools were giving devices, to their credit, they're working on giving devices to everybody so that they're not doing schoolwork on the phone or a weak iPad or an old computer, or if they don't have any devices at all in the house, right? So to the school's credit, they're giving devices now, but they don't have enough. There's 2 schools in my district where we still have children waiting for their Chromebooks. And we're already, the 3rd weekend? So that is troubling, and I know that the school system is working on it, but that does speak to a larger issue around the educational disparities. We already had educational disparities.
Well, it's not just, I guess the point is, it's not just in the 14th district, right? This is going on also everywhere around the country, right?
Exactly. And then the other piece of it is just access to the internet. And so we know that 2 things there. We know that the state has put more money into getting the last mile for many rural areas, and that money actually can come to Baltimore City as well to make sure that everybody has more access, but it hasn't been implemented yet. And then at the city level, Comcast is making a lower cost internet available, as well as hotspots. And I've heard different things about this, that the quality is not that great because they're not giving the full high speed. It's just a little bit at a time, and that's not very fair. So, and then of course, if people aren't having trouble with the internet, then they're they might be sitting in a parking lot at the library that's offering Wi-Fi from their building. So children want to learn, they want to be in school, and we've got to make it easy for them to do that and be safe, which is why we're not in school physically. And we've got to change how this is working, whether we provide a public option in the longer term on internet access, but in the meantime, really negotiating with Comcast and all those other providers that we have to make sure that everybody gets a chance to be on the internet. Here's the other thing about that, right? Parents have to work. Not many employers are being very flexible. I'm thankful for all the employers that are flexible with their families and their employees, but there are some that are not. And so we had as a matter of fact, in my daughter's classroom, because the parents had to work, the child was with the grandmother. What do you expect that the grandmother's going to be able to do with that technology in some cases, right? So we have all of these multifaceted issues around, making sure that everybody's got internet access. It was bad before, it's definitely worse now. So we have to continue to fight to make sure that we've got the right internet access and that every kid has the opportunity to learn in this new environment.
So we are chatting. If you're just joining us, we're chatting with Odette Ramos, candidate for City Council in the 14th District, looking to succeed Mary Pat Clark, served for decades with distinction. Odette, one of the things that we hear well, first of all, before we do that, let me back up. Describe your district to folks who aren't there saying, 14th District, man, where's the 14th District? Give them a visual of where that is.
Yeah, sure. So the 14th District is, like I said before, it's Hamden, Roland Avenue. I've got most of the 36th Street, the Avenue, all the way over to Clifton Park. I have Clifton Park, Harford Road, Coldstream Homestead, Montebello, all of Edna Gardens, which is a great all the neighborhoods are great. I have Waverly, Better Waverly, some of Charles Village is kind of broken up around 30th and 28th Street and 29th Street. I have lots of the Guilford neighborhood as well, and Hose Heights, a little bit of Roland Park, a little bit of Remington. So it's like that central Baltimore corridor. It's narrow, but long. So I do have Miss Shirley's on Cold Spring Lane, but then when you get to Underwood Road, it goes to York Road and then Argonne Drive. So I have a little bit of Morgan, which is great. I'm so excited to have that. And I have all of Hopkins University.
A really diverse district.
It is extremely diverse. I have some of the wealthiest people in the city, and I have some of the poorest people in the city in my district, and everywhere in between. So I'm excited to have such a diverse district.
I'm just looking at it, seeing some good food in there too. But I know you and John know that as well, right? So
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I have 5 business districts in my district. I've got Greenmount Avenue. I have a little bit of Cold Spring Lane right there, Miss Shirley's. I have our house. I have all of our house, which is
nice.
Great. I have
get anything I want there. I mean, right?
Exactly.
I go around the world there, right?
Yes. I have 36th Street, so I have most of the avenue in Hampton, and I've got that, St. Paul Street over there by the university, and potentially over on Hartford Road if we can get that commercial strip going.
Well, your husband was trying to drag me to Grenada back in the 80s, so, I am all down for the Caribbean food in the 14th.
Yeah.
And the 13th and the 12th and anywhere else that it is.
It's good. Yeah,
well, Odette, here's what we hear, to cut to the chase. When we interview folks who care about the city, we interview journalists and others, they'll say, Don, Nestor, the incoming city council, the incoming mayor, whoever it is, they do not have a clue about what they're about to run into in terms of a fiscal crisis for Baltimore City. And they will say, it's not just Baltimore City, it's major urban centers as well as state and local governments all across the United States. That this is just the tip of the iceberg. We've seen recent reports that as many as 60% of the restaurants in Baltimore City have closed and will not reopen. So my question for you is, do you have a clue how bad it's going to be to rebut those folks? And what's your plan to roll your sleeves up, assuming you're elected in November, and try to figure this out without a massive tax increase?
Yeah, I think we have to be creative, obviously. One of the things that I want to do is re-look at, there's a couple of things. One is to re-look at what, hi, this is my daughter.
Hi. Well, hello. What's her name? I
saw her coming up behind you.
What's her name?
Her name is Teresa.
Teresa, how are you?
Teresa, yeah.
Oh, Teresa, how are you? Back to finance. See, that's the best part of the job. Give Teresa a kiss, and now let's go back to budget.
Right, exactly. So we're going to be in a tough spot for sure. And so there's a couple of things that I think is really important. One is, while I realize that Amazon is providing us with a lot of jobs because we have the center there, I'm really clear that I don't always want them to win the holidays. And so I think it's important that we're really focused on local small business. I was a small business owner. I was the chair of the Baltimore Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as well. And we don't have a good infrastructure to really help our small businesses grow. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of people that are like, well, I don't have a job, or I don't like my job, or something different, and they're going to start something on their own. And I think that's actually promising. And I think we need to grow that spirit and make sure that they have access to financing, whether it's through a traditional bank or whether it's through the Community Development Finance Institution, CDFI, and several others, credit unions, et cetera. But really have that infrastructure where we're working together to enhance, businesses that are led by people of color, that are led by women, to really make that work and provide, they're providing a job for themselves, but also a job for others. And we know that small businesses actually take more risk. So I'm excited to try to work with all of my colleagues in these 5 business areas to make sure that people know that when, we're thinking about the holidays, make sure you think about your local business, and you can still order online with your local business. And not just always have to order online with some of the bigger retailers. And then the other thing, and that, will help boost incomes and make sure that we're able to, pay mortgages and all of that. I think that I do not want to increase the property tax. I won't do it. But like I said, I want to be I've asked if I am elected to be on the Taxation Finance Committee to really also look at how have we been dealing with our property tax. Right now, we do give a lot of incentives and tax breaks to some developments down by the water, where I am not sure that that's always brought us the best bang for our buck. So how do we make sure that, if we're going to do those, that it does bring tax revenue in other ways, but can we think of other ways to bring in revenue, but also to make sure that if that tax credit is not producing what we need it to do, we're going to take it back because we need that revenue. We have to look at all of that because right now the property tax revenue is very much resident based. We also have a third of our land in Baltimore City owned by major nonprofits, Hopkins, University of Maryland. And we love those institutions and we want them to stay and they will stay. But I think we've got to think of ways that some of that cost that those property taxes that we would be getting from them do come because it's not fair for a lot of the residents. So we've got to just be really creative. I think that also what's really exciting is that now we have this, we always have had the Office of the Inspector General, but it's been given more power in the last election through the voters. And also our Inspector General, Isabel Cumming, is really an amazing person and she's rooting out corruption and waste. And so we may be able to find some savings in other ways by doing that as well. And so that's important. The other thing is, and this kind of hits on a couple of things too, where I think we need to reform our procurement system to be able to actually save us money. What happens in our procurement system right now, and this is in the charter that we have to change, is that the city always goes with the lowest bidder. And so what happens is that, yes, there's definitely change orders because when you start digging in the ground, you find stuff. Totally get that. But we've been finding that sometimes those change orders are excessive, that somebody lowballs the project really low in order to get the project, but then asks for these change orders up and up and up. And there's not a lot of accountability with those change orders. And it just ends up at the Board of Estimates. There's no council oversight. And then there's no MBE recommendation. There's no MBE requirements. And there's also no union requirements when we talk about those change orders. So that has to change. We could save money by having better quality and we know what exactly we're going to be paying for in these projects rather than all these overruns that we never even had expectation to be able to pay for. So procurement reform is going to be part of that. So we've got to think differently about how we're doing taxation and revenue generation, but also how we're spending our money.
Corruption and waste, she said, Don. There you go. So we had corruption. How about waste? We talked about trash in the city and picking up trash. I live in the city. Don went off the rails with Tharuf Ignaraja earlier about trash and it not getting picked up. I'm sure this is an issue in the 14th right now for everyone.
So I have to say, yes, it is a huge issue. It is unfortunate that we have so many of our Department of Public Works workers sick with COVID, or somebody has been exposed and then the whole crew has to quarantine. So we have to be patient with them. I mean, this is a hard job and they've been getting sick. So part of it is a management issue. Why are they getting sick? Are they not having the proper PPE? Are they, in environments that are going to be harmful? But we also need our trash picked up. So it's important that we make sure that that is running well and we get our everything back in order. And hopefully that'll happen soon enough so that the crews are back working where they need to be. And they had to make the decision to stop picking up recycling so that everything could be dedicated to making sure that we're picking up the trash. We do have a trash problem, and not just because the DPW issue. People keep littering and throwing stuff in the median. Stop doing that, okay? This is a city that we love, and we don't want to do that. Now, one thing I will say that I think will help in that regard is we've got to bring back the bottle deposit bill, okay? Right? You're not gonna throw away 5 cents. You're not going to throw it away. So if we bring the bottle deposit bill back, where you bring back your bottles, you collect your 5 cents, that could be a nice little business for some young people and some other folks to be able to collect all the bottles and stuff. And that'll take a little bit out of our waste stream as well. So we've got to think creatively about that too. But the other thing is just people need to stop littering. If the trash isn't coming, wait till the next trash pickup or go to Sisson Street or somewhere else to be able to take your trash, because I can't tell you the amount of illegal dumping. Illegal dumping is happening for 2 reasons. One is that there's still haulers that from other places that don't care about our city are just going to dump their stuff, and they can't get into Sisson Street because they're a commercial hauler. Okay, that has to end. We've got to figure out how to make sure that they can get access to our convenience centers. but also heavy fines, way more heavy fines, to make sure that they're not doing that. The other thing is that people, are just throwing the trash out. Don't do that. This is the city that we love. And so we've got to figure out ways to change that.
Well,
Dad,
I'm going to jump in there, because I've known Nestor now forever, and I know when he gets excited about something, and when you almost come out of your chair and getting emotional about people dumping around and throwing their trash in the city, you're singing his tune.
It's just such an easy thing to do.
Well,
every Sunday morning we get up and go to the farmer's market, and every Sunday morning at 7:20 in the morning, and I know there's nobody out there looking at it, Pratt Street looks like a dump.
Well, but I'm going to suggest, Nestor, and Odette, I'm going to put this on your plate, and hopefully we can come back and talk about it after you've been in office for a few months. I'm going to suggest, and you can say, Don, you're full of it. That's what Baltimore Positive is all about. I'm going to suggest
I do that frequently, Odette.
One of the reasons that we haven't had what you're describing is, and I'm not pointing the finger at any individual, I'm going to say there's been a lack of a collective vision and an excitement and an enthusiasm and a communication strategy to involve the public, whether it's William Donald Schaefer trash ball or whatever it is, that part of government is shtick. It is, whether we like it or not.
Oh, I witness it every night from D.C. It's all shtick, apparently.
Yeah, not that kind of shtick. But we've got to have people with your outrage banging on a table saying, look, we've got to get everybody involved in this. We're better than this. Let's make it the cleanest city. And nobody's been sending, there's been no messages coming. I guess it's because we've been involved in so much corruption and other stuff coming out of the city, which seems like forever. We've got to get back to where we're selling a collective message of let's do this together, neighborhood by neighborhood. And I'm sensing that in you.
Yeah, no, we've talked about it a lot on the campaign trail too. I mean, even some of the people that have been in Baltimore forever are like, bring back trash ball, So we do. I think messaging really helps. I think incentives really helps. I think bringing back clean block contests and that kind of thing really helps. So we've got to do it. I mean, that's part of our image. We want to bring when people come to Baltimore, which we do have a lot of people coming. That's great. And so we want to really show them the best of us.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be really important. So we have all of that to do in terms of, and many groups got together to talk about the zero waste plan. So they're talking about the incinerator and all of that, but it's also working with individual communities on how to make sure that we're all picking up our trash.
Well, your dance card is clearly full, but it would be malpractice. It would be malpractice if we let you get out of here without talking about the number one issue. I'm sure you go to no meeting. I'm sure you have no discussion with anybody that doesn't begin and end with crime and homicides and street crime and the fact that people are afraid to walk there. Odette, my wife and I, we tend to walk every night. So
good.
We were walking through one of the beautiful Catonsville neighborhoods 2 nights ago. And we actually went over to drop something at my daughter's, and it got darker than we thought. And it was dark when we came. It was really dark.
Yeah.
And we walked, 6, 7, 8, 9 blocks, whatever it was, back home. And I turned to her halfway home, and I said, you know what? This is what everybody in every city in America ought to be able to do. Mm-hmm. Everybody ought to be comfortable enough walking 7, 8, 9, 10 blocks from their friend's house, neighbor's house, children's house when it's dark and not be looking over their shoulder. To me, the crime issue is personal. It's for the grandmom and the granddad who want to go get a snowball with their grandson. It's the person who wants to go down to the corner market.
It's the husband whose wife needs to go get some meds down at the pharmacy and walk 6 blocks in Federal Hill. That she can go down there and do that after 7 o'clock.
Nothing matters more. So give us the Odette Ramos take.
Yeah.
Because I know listen, we're not idiots. We know it's complex. And when we ask you to put an answer about crime in 60 to 70 seconds. We know that's unrealistic, but give us some sense, because I think people are tired of that. They want the city to be better, and they just don't see us making progress on this front.
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of things. There's the walking down the street and feeling uncomfortable piece, and a lot of that may be, based on the drug trade, gangs, that kind of thing. And it goes back to what I said earlier, which is to address substance abuse. And I'm not saying that everybody who has is struggling with that disease is a criminal. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that that could be a factor, but also that it's we've got to make sure that we have opportunities for everybody. I mean, people aren't doing this just because of the entertainment, right? They're not doing it because of entertainment. There's so many other deeper issues that we have to address. And if we don't have the right opportunities for young people and for others, then that's a problem. We also need to completely redo the juvenile justice system. It is not working. We had the young man who was murdered in my district, apparently was, had been in and out of the juvenile system for a long time. We failed him. We failed that young man, okay? And this is what's happening, is that we're, as a society, keep failing our young people, and it ends up being manifested in other ways, okay? So we've got to redo the juvenile justice system, making sure that they're getting supports, when if there's a problem, and that they're not going back to the same environment that got them there. That's important. The other piece is, I will say, as related to substance abuse, we had a young woman in my district murdered because she was involved with something and trying to get out of it. There's, whether it's a meth ring, whether it's something like that, and we need to go after and figure out how to address this, because there's too many young people caught up in these kinds of situations that they can't get out of it, and then they're hurt as a result. So there's some really deep issues that we have to address on the murdering front. And then there's the other piece where people feel like they have to solve a conflict with a gun. You don't have to solve a conflict with a gun. You don't have to solve a conflict with a gun. There's other ways to address conflict that we have to start teaching in the schools when we get back to school normally. The Community Mediation Center here in District 14, which was, I was the chair of for a while, working to make sure that people are addressing issues of conflict in different ways and not always having to shoot each other. So our crime issues, whether it's property crimes and, muggings and that kind of thing, as well as our larger issues of murder, I mean, we just need a comprehensive solution. And the police aren't going to solve it all for us. That's not, they're not. They don't have the experience and the expertise to deal with all this other pieces around the mental health, the substance abuse, the trauma, all of that. We have to come together and have a multi-agency impact and work on all of these issues. And so it's going to take a while, but we have to do it. And in order to address these issues. So I don't think we can arrest our way out of the problem. It's not going to work. We've seen that before. So we've got to provide opportunities. We've got to think about ways to get young people opportunities, redo our juvenile justice system, making sure that we're addressing some of these larger issues in our city in order to address them.
All right, look, we're going to have you back. I have to let you go because we're short on time. Give really John some love. Look, if we get together, rice, beans, or arepas better be involved in this, And something that, like, the beer that begins with a C, like a cerveza or something like that. So I appreciate you. You've been a lovely guest, and good luck to you on the election.
Thank
and we're encouraging everyone to vote. And I'm sure the next time I see you, steel drums and a food truck will be involved. All right.
Sure, I'm sure that that's the case. Absolutely.
And Teresa as well. All right. How about that?
If you let me just say one thing about voting. You had mentioned that we've got to, make sure everybody votes. We have to make sure everybody has the right information for voting, right? Because it is so confusing now.
We have been very hardcore on that. We've dedicated whole episodes to how my ballot was on the table yesterday. I pulled it out.
What do you want to say about it real quick, Odette?
Yeah. So first of all, you're not getting a ballot automatically mailed to you, right? You're not getting a ballot automatically mailed to you. Everybody will have to apply for the ballot, and you got something in the mail that you can fill out and send it in. If you didn't get that, call the Board of Elections, 410-396-1444. They'll make it happen.
She just happens to know that number.
Yeah. I mean, and they're great. I mean, the Board of Elections has been excellent about this. And then also the polling place that you usually go to, likely not open. So you can go to our website, odettteramos.com, and we've got a whole list for the 14th district of where the best places are to vote and where the best places are to be able to drop your ballot if you don't trust the mail. So, we just got to get that message out that it's harder this time to vote, which is unfortunate, and that everybody should make a plan for voting. So it's great that you all continue to pound that as well, that people have to really do their research onto how they're actually going to vote. This is the most important election of our lifetime.
Odette, from day one, Nestor has reminded people that democracy is not
a spectator sport.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
Hey, Odette, thank you very much. It was great to have you on.
Thanks a lot for your time. This was
terrific.
Wonderful.
Odette Ramos, first but not last at Baltimore Positive. On behalf of former Baltimore County Executive Don Moeller, I am Nestor Aparicio. We got sponsors from Taharka and Fadley's and State Fair and El Guapo and Moeller and Gary Realty. You'll be hearing them on WNST, and you'll be seeing them at the new Baltimore Positive.